What's up, Fankas?
Hello, Fankas.
How is everybody doing?
How are you doing? Are you sad? Are you sad if you're an Oscar Piastri fan? Are you happy if you're a Lando Norris fan? Or are you just depressed because we have 3 weeks with no Formula One? Well, guess what? You're about to be fed. You're hungry, and we're about to feed you a meal, baby, because, Matt, on the podcast today, we've got an F1 TV commentator and pundit, a YouTuber, a European Le Mans Series winner, a 2-time 24-hour of Le Mans podium finisher, winner of multiple World Endurance Championship races. And you know what? I'd say he does one hell of a Martin Brundle impression. Today, we've got Alex Brundle, legend on the pod.
Hello, gents. You said that was going to be wild. I was not prepared for that. I was not prepared for that. That was an introduction. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Of course.
You bring a lot of energy to the broadcast, so we decided we had to match your energy. You're so I like to attribute it to coffee and that you don't travel, so you don't have. You're just like right. That's such an advantage that you have over your competition is that you don't have to travel. So you're just you. I mean, how far are you from the broadcasting studio?
So like when I do a little bit on site, but I'm literally like maybe 45 minutes from the studio. Mm-hmm. So honestly, I have to do the opposite. I like on the drive there, I have to be like, okay, Alex, this travel is too easy. We are entering the broadcast zone and now need to take this seriously because it's easy to just like, swan in, have a coffee, and then you're on air to like millions, and yeah, it's easy to spill it.
Right. Well, you gotta psych yourself up. But what we appreciate about you, and I feel like this is all the commentators that we gravitate towards. They have that kind of same, childlike wonder about
passion.
This, about the passion for the sport that we feel like we have. We bring a little bit more of that American obnoxiousness to it, if you will. But, we can feel, as you're going through a lap time and you're going through, who's gaining, which advantage in which area, as you're looking at this boring-ass telemetry that to us, we're just like, yeah, it's squiggly lines on a screen. You're bringing that, and I feel your passion through the screen. So we appreciate that.
Every fourth comment is, I don't understand a word of what you just said, but you look like you were really enjoying it. So I enjoyed it too. And like, that's not the aim, but if that's the outcome, then I really don't mind.
No, I feel like I learned things. This is coming off of Hungary, and you were going through the quali sessions between Leclerc and Piastri, and you were the straight line speed. You zoomed in on that thing, and I see that little difference right there. Wait, we're going to get into your life. We're going to talk about the man that is Alex Brundle, but we just came off of Hungary. Charles Leclerc's spiraling out. There's a lot of talk about the Oscar Lando was that Matt believes that it wasn't fair and that Oscar Piastri should have won that race, and Lando Norris is getting British bias behind the pit wall treatment.
You're overstating what I said. I just said that it was that Lando got a little lucky. That's all.
Yeah, he did get a little lucky. He did.
That's all I'm saying.
Formula One is inherently, so one guy wins, right? Formula One is inherently unfair. Sometimes anybody who watches a NASCAR race knows that sometimes it's better to be second on the road going into the white flag lap, right?
Right.
And this is just Formula One's strategic equivalent. Okay, Lando fluffs the start a bit, loses a couple of spots. They have to pull the Larry one stop, and then actually after that recovers it. But, everybody complains that Formula One races are over. We sat there on the line, and I heard Hinch on our broadcast go, well, so much of this is going to be about the first lap, and everyone complains that it's about the first lap. Then Lando nails the strategy, ends up winning the race after he's fourth on lap one. So, positive? Okay, maybe positive, not positive if you're a Piastri fan, but positive.
Right, yeah. Think positive.
But the people are saying like, well, Oscar could have done a one stop. They offered it to him and he didn't want to do it. It's like, yeah, in a vacuum, 2 stops is better, but they didn't say, oh, we're going to offer you a 1 stop or a 2 stop. But by the way, with the 2 stop, you're going to have to overtake Lando. Like, he didn't know all of that, right? Lando has the advantage of knowing everything, right? You're going to do a 1 stop and you're going to have track. Like, Lando had all the facts. Oscar didn't. It's not like fair or unfair.
I wouldn't say he had all the facts. I think
he
they
did
said
have all the facts.
I think they said want to try a 1 stop. And he said, sure, why not? I mean, so all the facts.
So I'm listening into Lando through the whole race, right. And what I didn't hear is, well, Lando, we've got to tell you, Hulkenberg, he's done a really, really early pit stop, and he looks like he's going to 2 stops. So let's read you through the field. Albon, he's not getting absolutely every single strategy. Right. Yeah, and that's just how it played out. When it played out at the flag, just as it was the other way around in Spa, the final stint was available. Oscar was closing in on him, and there could have been more lap speed there.
I agree. We'll go to this for a second. We discuss sometimes on the broadcast to bring your dad in for a second. There's this thing that happens where they're like, the strategies are going to converge into the final lap.
They never converge. They never converge.
Kind of converge.
They never fucking converge.
It's 90% of the time they don't actually get the guy.
It's like 2 races in a row they've converged.
But Alex, they actually haven't converged their time. They've never converged.
No, they converge, but then an overtake doesn't happen because by that time it's the last couple of laps, and then whoever's in front 2 weeks ago it was Oscar, this week it was Lando. They pull out a little bit of that extra grip and they're able to actually get it done. So it's like sometimes when it's like, these strategies, it's going to come down, like he's going to catch him on the last 2 laps, and it's like by that time an overtake, it feels like never happens.
So for those strategies to have converged for you guys, the second place driver has to pass the first place driver in the final 5 laps of the race and win. That's a full convergence.
Hold on.
I think that's
not what I said. Yeah. That's not what I said.
Because
Lando didn't. In Spa, Lando didn't even get close, and there was a lot of if he hadn't made that mistake and that mistake, totally would have happened. That was that.
It's good analysis.
Oscar, thank you. And then Oscar didn't really it wasn't really on. He made that 1 pass.
It was the closest gap of the entire Formula 1 season at the flag.
Right, but I think he was he was catching him at 0.6, 0.7. I think after the post-mortem on that is you actually need a second a lap to really have whatever his speed delta was in the exact same car on 15 lap younger tires, it wasn't really enough.
And he had a few wobbles, but if that was Lando Norris, obviously you'd be screaming to the hills about it. But okay, anyway, we know that let's get off of this.
But hold on, let me just say one more thing. But Alex, how many times have we heard this at a Formula 1 race? If he had just had 3 more laps. If he had just had 2 more, how many times have we heard that? We've heard that a lot.
Yeah, but that's what you want to be hearing, right? Because that means
I want it to happen.
Well, what we're accusing your family of is
this is a family thing now. Okay, that's
sorry, not you. We're accusing
all of these Formula 1. What I'd like to say is you and your father need to fix it.
No, it's actually a Pirelli problem. It's the tires; they never actually.
No. But what we're saying is that sometimes it feels like there's Crofty and Martin. They got to keep. They got to keep people interested. Got to keep people watching because it's if that's what's so funny when you get a Jacques Villeneuve or a Nico Rosberg on, because then they'll just be like, he's not going to make it. This race is over, and then even as a fan, you're like, okay, I guess I'll just turn off the broadcast then.
Sure, and are you thankful at that point? Because I actually pulled one of those in the middle of the Formula 2 race in the middle of the Formula 2 sprint race this weekend, right? I gave it. This is not a classic because it wasn't. Yeah. We'd had 0 position changes or something after lap 3,
right?
And I went, but it's going to get crazy later. Lo and behold, Sebastian Montoya parks up and then safety car, and it got crazy later. Now, which way would you prefer it? Would you prefer the commentator to go, this one sucks, it's over, you go out, fire up the barbecue, you're halfway through a sausage, and then someone gets back to you and tells you that it was a brilliant race you've missed? Or we lie a little bit and then keep you engaged to the flag, and maybe it's a bit boring, but hey, you watch some fast cars.
In the moment, I'm happy that you did it. At the flag, I'm pissed. I feel like I've been scammed. I've been scammed.
Sure.
So shockingly, the commentators don't know what's going to happen, right? So we're guessing as well, and that's the problem. But it's our job to keep you entertained.
I remember there was this great moment with Jacques Villeneuve where George Russell was doing a run, and it was like, could George Russell get pole? And I think it was Croft. I think your dad was taking a week off, or someone was taking a week off, and Crofty was like, could George Russell do it? And George Russell, Mr. Saturday, could he snatch pole? And there was the slightest little wobble. George just had the slightest little wobble. And Jax was like, it's over. He can't do it. And then you could just feel Crofty just absolutely deflate. And it's that's the tension, right? Do you want brutal honesty? And it was in the first sector. And I was like, okay, well, and I was just laughing my ass off. Is there does that come from above? Does that come from your bosses that are like, hey guys, can we keep this interesting? Where does that desire come from?
I think we as soon as you're on air, somehow you feel an obligation to the audience to make this seem exciting. Now, we have an advert for teaching in the UK, and it kind of starts out with is this interesting? And then it just goes, okay, then prove it. And and then it throws you into a classroom with 30 kids or whatever. Yeah. And at that point, you're on air, and you think, well, I've got to hear. I'm sitting in front of a microphone. I've given my entire life to telling people that this is interesting. I better pretend that it is all the time, even if it's not. But eventually, I think an audience do thank you for being honest. But not giving up on a race. You can never give up on a race. You can tell people, right, this is not going to be a classic, and then try and find the intrigue. But you just can't plain give up on the sport.
Right. Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, okay, we're talking about things that are interesting. Alex, we find you to be extremely interesting. So we want to know about you, your life.
Finally, I found someone.
We find you're a fascinating guy. We love watching you on the weekends. We've loved learning a little bit about your story through our research, but now we have the man in front of us. So we want to find out about you. So I want to start early age. You're a kid. When did you first, I have a niece, 4-year-old niece, and she doesn't really know anything that's going on beyond, whatever doll she's playing with or whatever, she gets to go swimming now with her, floaties. When did it kind of dawn on you, all right, my family and my dad does stuff that that the other dads don't do? When did that first hit you?
Well, I know no other reality, right? Yeah. So him doing that was just entirely normal. I was completely. He would go away somewhere, and then we would watch a race in which there was a man of his same name who would compete. Didn't connect the two people. Right. And occasionally, I was just transfixed with trophies for some reason. I just wanted him to come back with a trophy. I recognized that was a positive thing to happen, and everyone in the house would be happy at that point, and there would be treats and stuff. But at that point, it would be everybody would be, oh, should we have burgers for tea? Whatever. And so, yeah, but I was still more interested at that point in oh, he's been to Hungary. I wonder if he'll bring me back a Hungarian trinket from the airport. He would go away. Totally just completely disconnected from the fact that my life was entirely different to everyone else. It was really only when I started going as late as secondary school. You really get a grasp for the kind of economics of how other kids lives work and where their parents are, and then a kid will, come and hang out for the day, and all of a sudden their parents are only available on the weekends, and your parents aren't available on any of the weekends, and you realize that you're just living out of sync with everyone else, which is what racing is.
Right. But did you not realize like how elite it? Like, when did you realize like this is such an? Was it only until you like tried to climb the ladder that you realized like this is fucking?
You realize how insane it is when you try to do it, and what's also really weird is you forget really quickly as well. Like, I every so often I have to still jump back in a race car to recognize, because we sit there at home, and I always think this, right? If you said favorite heavyweight boxer, you guys name one.
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, okay, Muhammad Ali. Let's throw you back into the past and say, okay, we're going to throw you into the ring with Muhammad Ali. How long do you think you'd last, right? And most people's answer is, for as long as I could run away, okay? Right? Now, you walk around a town centre in the middle of UK or the middle of the US, and you go, how far do you think you'd be off Lewis Hamilton in a Formula One car? And most people will go quite a long way, but some people will go, I don't know, like if you gave me, a bit of practice, like I think I could get up there. But the reality is,
it's
the same, it's the same distance. You are the same distance away. It's insanely elite sport. And you always have to, like, as a commentator, you have to remind yourself of that. But yeah, like climbing the ladder is just hard in a way, like financially, physically, in terms of like ability to do the sport is insanely difficult.
Well, I want to go to, there's climbing the ladder, but let's get a little bit before you start climbing the ladder. When do you even like notice that there is a ladder? And what are the first steps towards like, hey, what if I'm on the first rung? I'm on the first rung.
Well, first of all, making the choice, was that your choice? Was it you monkey see, monkey do? Who made the decision?
Totally that. Like, it never felt like a decision. So like I was going down that route, and there were various forks off the road, right? So if at any point I went, you know what, Dad, this race car stuff, it just doesn't seem like it's for me. Like I could have gone another way, but it felt like the default route, right? I cannot imagine, and it's perhaps just the way that I'm wired up, I cannot imagine a young person of that age being presented with the opportunity to drive race cars as a living going, no, I don't really fancy it. But then there must be people to whom that would be their decision.
Do you remember even choosing it, or like you've just been racing as long as
I've been racing? Yeah, I've been racing as long. But like I naturally like idolized my dad, right? I idolized him at that age, and so as many young men do, you want to be like dad. Dad went racing. And I wanted to go racing, firstly for me, and because it seemed fun and amazing, and I really enjoyed it at every stage. But secondarily, because he was totally happy with that, and I had genuine opportunity, right? Like, how many people have genuine opportunity, like financially and contact wise, to actually go and pursue that? Like, so few.
Where's your mom in all this, though? Because your dad came up during a time where it was not. Now it's so much safer than it used to be. Your dad came up during a time where people were dying. He raced with Senna. He obviously had the horrible crash in '84 that where he almost like lost his foot or both feet, I think, right?
Foot. Yeah, well, one foot, definitely, both feet, if they really made a bad job of it, yeah.
Right. So I guess I'm like, I could see potentially, parents, a parent being like, what? I'm not, it's fine for you to do it. You're an adult person, and I didn't know you before, when you were a kid first deciding to make this choice, but was the danger aspect of it like present in their minds, and how present was it in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, they never brought it to my attention, firstly. So firstly, my mum is like a professional at her job in the same way that my dad was a professional at his. Like, she was like a professional racing wife and mother. Just like every facet of it. you know, the support, like the right thing to say, the background of it, like the preparation of how a sportsman needs to be and the environment they need, when to kick your ass a little bit, when to let you be. Like, she just completely knew that. And she'd had one-time round of practice. So, like, I benefited massively for that. Honestly, my dad, when I first started, like, I never expressed fear in the early days. But, like, I think it was the first couple of times I went through Eau Rouge in a proper Formula 2 car. I went, man, this is quick. This is quick, Dad. And he just looked at me and just went, if you're scared, stop now, because it only gets faster from here.
Ooh.
And that was the only conversation we ever had about it. You know,
wow.
I myself have been in 2 races where drivers have been, you know, really badly injured, and as a driver, you roundly believe that it'll never happen to you. You just believe with like 100% certainty. Weirdly, it's a really weird mind space.
There's a lot of talk about, you know, there's kind of a fascination with, you know, a racing driver's parent. You know, I mean, there's obviously the Max Yoss relationship, Lewis and his father. Now Max has a kid. Kind of what style of racing dad was your dad? You know, it seems like there was a bit of that killer kind. You know, he seems affable and whatever, but then he's just like, well, if you're fucking scared, you might as well quit. So, you know, what, you're gonna do it? No, you know,
he's not quite as, I don't think he's ever quite as extreme as Yoss, but he's definitely in that, like, old school racer mode of, like, you know, when you go racing, especially the era he went racing in, if stuff went wrong, people got hurt, as we've just covered, right? What that does is leaves you a very short period of time to potentially save your own life in before you go out or make a decision, right? So it necessitates this incredible bluntness to the way things are delivered, because stuff needs to be right. It's life or death, and, you know, and you only potentially have this year, this race, this opportunity to do it, which makes them, like, quite extreme parents to have. Like, it really, you know, forces you. And I think to kind of overcome that as a driver, you have to be a character a little bit like Max. It either sort of breaks you in terms of your mentality and makes you go, oh, man, I can't deal with this. Or it turns you into just steel. And that's where Verstappen is at. That's where Max is at.
It's interesting. They have to, like, it's almost like you have to beat the British politeness out of yourself and become more Dutch. Like, oh, would you consider doing this or consider doing it? It's like, no, we can't be polite here. We just have to be like, this is how you do it. Shit or get off the pot. That's interesting.
Well, if Max was turned into steel, what material do you feel like you were turned into?
I have no idea. Probably tofu over the
Come on.
No, so, like, there are times I look back at myself, like, through so I drove endurance cars. I would say, like, I started out, I kind of served my apprenticeship in it. And then I drove endurance cars, like, properly professionally from 2014 through, you know, 2022. And in that time, like, I was a totally different person. Like, I was metal of some sort, you know, because you stop your year and then you just go immediately into, like, grinding to try and make the next year work. Because, like, no matter how much, you know, help you get, or no matter how well you've done in the previous year, it's just like you're only as good as 1 year at that level of racing. And then it always takes the winter, you know, to get back going again with sponsors and teams. And would you know, this driver in this place and that driver in that place, and you need to find your spot.
Was there a moment in your life where you were, because you look at the way your dad climbed the rank, like, I was, like, looking, he did, like, grass racing,
yeah,
like, almost, I was like, what the
grass
fuck
track.
is that? Grass track. I was like, what the fuck?
Which is polite, which is polite banger racing, right? So you're supposed to call it grass track racing, but, like, you're supposed to call it grass track racing, but it's like stock destruction derby, basically.
Okay, so I'm like, that would never happen to. So at what point are you like, oh, he can't really, because like the road, that road to Rome doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
like the road to Rome is it? So you're like, he can't even help me. Like his advice is kind of outdated and useless. Like, and I think this is something that we all struggle with our parents, where it's like our parents are like, well, how was your handshake, or like, did you go to every place on the corner and hand in your resume? And it's like at a certain point where you're like, holy shit, he can't help me anymore. He's like, it's in a different world. I'm on my own. Like even Martin Brundle can't help me now.
So there was a moment when I was very late in my single seater career, where one of my family members asked me like how many Formula One teams I'd written to, and I'm like
an actual letter, not even an email.
Yeah, like an actual letter. Which slideshows have been proven to work, so maybe I should have taken his advice. But we're kind of working, and it's true, right? So when something has worked, like he's a tremendously like talented sports person and has moved into being a talented broadcaster, but like none of that needed a huge amount of management. He was just a country kid who happened to be really fast in a race car and then happened to be able to talk about it and rolled between jobs by continuously saying yes and making good decisions. Does that actually put him in the position really to escalate the next generation's career maybe 20, 30 years later?
Right.
Not really. I mean, he's got a lot of experience of the paddock, how it was now. But yeah, you've nailed it. I was kind of on my own there. And actually, we were kind of naive as well in the early phases of my racing about like what was going to occur, and that, you were going to do a decent job in Formula 3 and then someone was going to ring you up and go, hello, young man. Someone with a tweed jacket was going to come over to you and go, would you like to drive my Tyrrell? Whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Bankers, you know them, you love them. This episode is brought to you by BetMGM. We love BetMGM, and this season is bringing tons of races where you can bet and make your Sundays that much more exciting. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, they're battling for that top spot, and you never know who's going to get that third spot at the podium. Is it George Russell? Is it Max Verstappen? Is it Charles Leclerc? Feels like every week you don't know who's finishing second and you don't know who's finishing third, and you can put your bets in there today. Come see what's new at BetMGM. You can score bigger when you win with boost tokens, odd boost tokens, and more. Even if your bet doesn't hit, we've got you covered with no sweat tokens. Sign up at BetMGM today and you'll have access to countless betting options, including new look, same game parlays, teasers, live bets, and so much more. Take advantage of these offerings and be sure to use the bonus code DADDY, because we're fun, when signing up to receive up to $1,500 in bonus bet if your first bet loses, baby. We'll see you at BetMGM.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 for New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 for Massachusetts. 21 and over only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP for Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF for Iowa. 1-800-981-0023 for Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
That's interesting. So at what point did you have to like go? Did there need to be like sort of an untethering or a sort of
right? How do you rebel? I'm curious about like a rebellion.
Yeah,
like, because all teenagers have to rebel against their parents at some point. Like, how, it's like when you're doing something that's so extreme. It's like my dad wants me to be a racing driver. Like, what do you it's like you rebel by becoming a poet. Like, what's the rebellion of a young
how do you
racing
rebel?
driver look like?
It's like sitting at home writing sonnets, just like I'm against
or it's
you,
like
father.
I'm gonna use understeer instead of oversteer. That's your only way of rebelling.
But like it's a valid question, and I think so. I really took my own path when I went to sports car racing, because at that point, like, I was 20-something years old, and I would just go to all the meetings myself and go, you know what? Don't need that help. But it's kind of impossible to do that if you're me, because
right.
My dad carries with him so much positivity for a potential career, right? So like, if I need to get in touch with a team, he's brilliant. Like I can go and go. Do we have a contact for this guy? Like I need to go and approach him. So then you're always like back into the loop.
Right. Yeah.
Of needing to then connect, so that there is no such rebellion. I mean, I don't really need to. He's a great mentor. He's a good guy to be around, and he's realistic, right? So like, I didn't need to kind of go charging out into the world and be like, now I'm gonna do it my way, Dad. Yeah. But like, you know, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to carve your own path as well, because, you know, a lot of the time, let's say you're pitching a sponsor, right? And you're going to go into sponsor X, and you're going to put a completely worthwhile deal in front of sponsor X. But there's a chance they might get your father involved with all of his,
right,
you know, reach and and so on. You guys know all about that, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, sponsor X, if you're that sponsor, what do? You negotiate with me and you say, we're not going to do it unless Martin comes and does.
Right.
So you then end up getting turned down, having ground away at perfectly legitimate deals, because the next stage was, like, for them, was theoretically available. So like trying to disjoin those two sides is kind of impossible. I've kind of made my peace with it now. You know, I kind of am who I am, and that's it, you know?
Sponsors are one thing where you're like, okay, I get it. They want what they want. But like, how about like just regular relationships? Does that come into play? Like, do you have to be extra wary?
Yeah,
like,
for
how
sure.
How do you filter out, like, you know, like
yeah.
in the chat, like, can you drop Martin's to contacts? Like, I just hit you up for an interview with your dad. Like, how do you deal with that? But seriously, can you just drop his email in the chat?
You know, I have a copy and pastable note in on my phone that says in extremely politely and well thought out words, "No, I will not put you in touch with Martin Brundle."
Perfect.
Can you drop it in the? Can I read?
Yeah.
Can you send it to me?
No.
Can you send it to me?
And because it's like since I was like 8 years old, right? And you get, and again, like, you get a real perception for it as well. Like you know, it's been part of my life for a long time, and it's something like my life comes and my position in terms of like being my father's son comes with so many positives. Like these things are just like minor annoyances in comparison to the benefits of being me. Right. That's kind of how it rolls. But you do have to get prepared.
Definitely.
So we're about the same age. And,
yeah. That's true.
And I guess maybe I'm trying to relate to you, and I'm just failing to in certain ways because you have such a wildly different life. But I think part of getting older is like when you look up to your dad. I mean, I think every young boy looks up to their dad. I think that's just pretty universal. But then there's that moment where you realize that your dad is just a man, is just a person. Yeah. And I guess even though your dad is actually a legend, and our dads are just normal guys, like, did you have that moment?
Oh, massively. But it's been really recent, actually. Like I'm kind of delayed on that one because we've made so many decisions together, right? Through racing wise and trying to, like, you know, racing drivers and their fathers are like sort of this weird, inextricably linked duo. I mean, look at like Oliver Behrman and Dad, you know, Adam Norris. Like, they're still, you know, Carlos Sainz Sr. Like, they're still in the paddock and you're there because so much of the time it's like this weird sort of continuous connection that rolls through somehow into later life. I think it's because the fathers have in general sacrificed quite a lot, you know, to get them to that position. But like, yeah, you do realize that, And but I've seen that in the background all the way through. I saw all of even when I was a really young man, I saw all of the difficulties of racing, and I saw all of the moments when it wasn't working out and sat at home shitting myself when he flipped through the air in a Benetton, and then saw him in a Jordan, and then saw him come home and have to deal with getting ready for the next race. So that humanity's always been there. But I think, I've come to that kind of realization, relatively recently, just because of how inextricably our lives have been linked as I've moved through the junior ranks of racing.
Is there? I mean, I'm noticing this. I'm with my family, right? My sister's in town. I'm noticing it with my dad, literally just kind of they're they get older. There's a little bit well, actually, I have the best idea. Actually, I'm going to get that now. I'm going to do this. You have the myth of them starts to kind of fade in front of your eyes.
Sure, but TV maintains that little bit of that. I mean, we had an epic moment a couple of weeks ago where we tried to take a selfie on the pit wall at Spa, and he didn't know how to do it. And and there were a couple of moments as well where Sky have asked him to do bits of digital content, and he'll come over to me and be like, "How do I work this thing?" And I'll have to But definitely. I think. Has he ever had that kind of myth to me? Yeah, maybe when I was a much younger man, but it's fully gone now. We've dealt with things so honestly over the years.
Is he as sassy at home as he is on the grid?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That is him.
Okay, so wait, is he But part of me thinks he's very sassy and curmudgeonly in the grid walk because he doesn't seem like he wants to do it. He seems like he hates doing it.
Yeah, he does hate doing it now. Yeah, because and I think he said it verbatim before. What me and what we both want to do is be race car drivers forever. Right. Right. And so the Brundle dream in some way is to just do a lap do 25 laps every day, and then come in the pit lane and everyone just goes, "Brilliant laps, Alex! Brilliant laps, Martin!" Well done you.
So you guys just in hell? You guys are just basically watching. You're basically just having to commentate on other people sleeping with your significant others. Is that what's happening? And you have to act excited while you're doing it. Is that what's happening?
This is the thing, and this is how much I'm putting in. When you're complaining about me trying to make the race sound better, it kills me inside to do that. This is someone else racing the cars that I should be in, right? Right. And I'm having to go, this is brilliant. Lap 25. I did 2.5 seconds delta for the overtake. Go! Yeah. So that's so we both can't leave racing alone. So being pundits to motorsport will always be behind actually doing it ourselves. So the going onto a grid and interviewing people who aren't even to do with the racing that's actually going on.
Yes.
Right? Is purgatory. Right. But then there are a group of the audience that really want to see that. Right? So
yes.
I'm not sure what group that is.
The more he doesn't like doing it, the more we enjoy watching it. So sometimes it's your enjoyment of it is not really what it's about.
It's true of a lot of media though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a moment where you got lippy with him and he puts you in your place?
He'll put me in my place anyway. I don't have to get lippy. It's incredibly sharp tongued, incredibly sharp tongued, and you get used to it after a while. And I'm pretty zippy as well.
Right.
You know, occasionally. So
did you feel like you maybe inherited that? Like sometimes it's like I'll be hanging out with one group of friends, and then I'll hang out with another group of friends, and I'll kind of use the humor of my one group of friends with my other group of friends, and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, what's going on here?" You know what I mean? Do you ever have that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. But like the whole of motorsport is like that as well. You know, that motorsport has still this kind of, it's like that culture of, hey, we're driving cars at 200 miles an hour. Say what you mean, you know?
Right.
And
yes.
So you go out of motorsport and you're like, well, that looks terrible. Get it right. And then you go like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm not in the racing garage now. Need to, and so like, you know, for example, I kind of like my partner works for a very big, nice company. She's extremely talented, has a proper job, right?
Yeah.
If I ever go to one of her like work events or something, I'm going to have to be like, okay, not a racing event, Alex. People expect you to be, you know, because there's a certain way that people talk to each other in the garage, which is necessary. It's like brusque and it's quick. But yeah, you have to leave it at home sometimes.
But when you hear, it's interesting. It is brusque and it's quick. But then you hear some of these radios of like Ferrari talking to Charles Leclerc, you know, some of this back and forth on the radio, and you're like, "Hey, where's that brusque, quick thing that I'm supposed to be?" You know, it's like let's be a little bit more straightforward with each other here. Feels like some people don't understand that.
So this is where F1 really differs, though, from the rest of racing. So F1 drivers know they're going out. Know they're going out to, you know, a huge number of people. I mean, sit in the radio room for F3. It's a different story. Sit in the radio room for sports cars. It's a different story again. So like mass media changes the way that racing drivers act hugely. And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes they lose it though, right? You know, and you get a sense of, and it's really interesting as well. I think, you know what, for example, like when Tsunoda came into Formula One,
yeah,
and he was like super extreme on the radio, now has lived the fallout,
right,
learned and knows, and it's taken him a little bit longer, but he's learned that, okay, what I say on the radio, I'm going to have to answer questions about after the race. Imagine if everything you said to your engineer on the radio, nobody heard but your engineer.
Right.
And imagine how that would change what that feedback would sound like.
Totally.
What is said to the engineer when no one can hear?
It's
you're
it's an idiot.
When you're an LMP2 and no one's listening, what are you saying?
It's just very. It's a lot more open, right? So sports car radio is a lot more open. So that, for example, this weekend the radio from Charles Leclerc. You know, we have an issue. We can't sort the issue out. It might be.
What do you think that was, by the way?
So I did a tweet about that today.
Yes,
and then I realized one does not simply do a fun little theoretical tweet about what happened, because it's now like at 100K on Twitter and everyone's going, no, it isn't. Don't be stupid. But I don't know. So I think it's probably plankware. I think it's probably plankware, but without the data that I can't see everything, I should caveat. See, when I said about the context, that's what I mean. Yeah, so I think it's probably plankware, and what they have to do is they had to put the car on higher tire pressures at the end of the race to lift it off the floor. Would be my best theory.
That would make sense.
Yes,
that would explain the falling delta time. No, apparently it was a chassis issue. It was a chassis issue, and it was a one-off, and it'll never happen again. Do you believe the Pravda coming out of the Ferrari garage? Like, it feels like often there's a moment that happens, the driver's saying one thing, and then in the press afterwards, they're like, "What do you? I don't even. What do you mean? I said that. I didn't say any of that. Obviously, the team did nothing wrong, and they're perfect."
Yeah. Well, it could be a chassis issue, couldn't it? The chassis could be too close to the floor.
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, it's legitimate, but you know, at the end of the day, they're entirely entitled to say whatever they want. And as George said in the pen afterwards, he's never going to go, "Well, guys, I got to tell you, we're really marginal on plankware, and I sure hope they don't check it." You know, is he after the race? So yeah,
right.
Yeah,
okay, so you've discussed that not racing makes you ill. and that so how do you solve this within yourself? I mean, obviously you've had your own career behind the wheel. Where are you getting those kicks off? Like, is it enough what you're currently doing? Are you wanting to do more? Where does that currently sit in your life?
So I race loads of historic cars now,
yes,
which are like suitably terrifying, which is cool. And then that keeps me behind the wheel. And honestly, without that, I would be a pretty sad puppy. I mean, last year I entered the Nürburgring 24 hours, like just because I got the opportunity, just for pure, gigs. Like and that kind of thing. So I still drive, I still test, and that kind of thing. If I was going to go back to racing professionally, I'd have to sack everything else off and just go and do that. And that's the difficulty of the scenario now, really, because like TV is great, and like it's the closest to a real job, I've kind of had, which has its own benefits. And F1, to be part of F1 in the biggest era of F1 ever is awesome. Then I know, because I'm, still kind of 35, someone's going to roll in and be like, how would you like to drive? And I'm going to I will still get a crossroads at some point, and I'm going to have to make either a sensible or a nonsensical decision about what I then do.
So you drove LMP2, you drove these 24-hour races. Everyone's talking about the F1 movie, but no one's talking about the Daytona race in the beginning. How accurate was that?
I honestly think that's one of the most accurate depictions of a sports car race I've ever seen. I think it's one of the... I should probably, it's like, hopefully this doesn't get broadcast to my colleagues at Formula One, but I actually think it was the best racing scene in the movie. Like I really liked it. Some of my buddies who did the test driving for that movie really enjoyed shooting that scene as well, because they said that basically they had way more free reign. Obviously they could just hire Daytona, right?
Right.
And you can just go and bash a Porsche into another Porsche, or a Porsche into a BMW for, the whole shoot. Those races are as insane as they seem. Like, particularly the Nürburgring 24 hours, it's still going, and you drive around in the middle of the night around a, almost 30-kilometer course with no floodlights, thinking, I cannot believe this is still allowed. Cannot believe this is still allowed.
Yeah, they don't race there in F1 anymore because it's like insane.
Yeah, they stopped because it's just too dangerous. I mean, I can't believe they ever raced single-seat cars around there anyway. It's wild.
Is it you feeling like, no, I want to be in that car? Is it, are y'all just all adrenaline junkies, or what is the kind of, I mean, I've had, bits of time. I did a hot lap in Miami. Even literally yesterday, there was a guy who was visiting my family, and he had a Porsche 911, like 1990 Porsche 911, and I was kind of like, and he was like, you want to drive it around? And we like did a couple like laps around the thing. And obviously, like, I was thrilled for it. I have just a little bit of like a taste of probably what you like are fiending for at all times. Is that really just it? Is the rest of the world on like, in black and white until you're in a race car and then it's in color?
Yeah, it is a bit. So there are two things. Like, firstly, there's like this thing where you come up against that wall of like being a bit scared of something, and then moving through that wall is a thrill. And unless you do that in a competitive way, there's nothing that makes you... So, like, at the beginning of every racing season, you go out, and I'll do a lap. And then you come in, and every year, I just forget how fast you have to go, right? And you have to go out there and go, like, okay, let's just, like, really hurl this thing at the racetrack, right? That in itself is a thrill, to be forced to take that next step. And then I have this weird like desire to optimize. So like I'd find myself like in the winter break, when I had long winter breaks, this is really bizarre, as a youngster, doing like speed runs on Sonic the Hedgehog, just to see like see what I mean? Like, oh yeah, go back to the start of the run and like, oh my, if I just like jumped and then I hit that balloon and then I jumped to that, I could like shave. And you just have this desire to like get something and just make it like as honed as it can possibly be. And then there's like a secondary thrill in that, in like just the purity of like getting something right down to like its best possible form in delivery.
Okay, here's a question I have, because I was trying to think of like, we're the same age, and I was like, what cultural difference would there have been in your household that would have maybe like provided friction? Now I'm like, is video games? Because like now it seems like it's interesting because when we were first like learning about F1, we got into it through Drive to Survive. We were like watching, I think like Gasly play the video game and whatever. Like all these, especially now the young kids, they've been on simulators of Monza since they were like 8 years old. Was there like, I'm picturing like 12-year-old you playing Sonic and your dad being like, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm getting better at racing. Shut the fuck up, Dad. I mean,
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly that. So I love to now point out that, like, because I was, and if you'd have told me this at the time, I'd have gone, no, I'm not. But like, I was addicted to Gran Turismo, like in a bizarre way. In a really extreme way. And I love the fact that now like professional racing teams are using simulation to literally run their entire weekend, and people are making like hundreds of thousands of pounds or whatever, driving effectively big versions of that in order to optimize the racing cars, right?
Your
but
dad
at the time,
was Digimon Hansu in that movie.
Yeah, but at the time, my dad was just like literally like, get off that thing and lube the chain of this Rotax, or whatever, and just completely didn't get it. Like, but why would he?
Did he ever get on the sticks and race you?
Yeah, for sure. So we would have a Sega Rally Championship, right?
Uh-huh.
Sega Mega Drive. This is how old.
Oh yeah, the
this
Sega.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Sega Mega Drive with the cassette. Yeah.
Yes.
First route of Sega Rally Championship. There were literally 3 routes, right? Yeah. 3 routes. Around the lake and everything. Yeah, we would have a race on that. So I was in a Lancia Delta. He was in a Toyota Celica. There were 2 cars in the game. There were 2 cars, and so yeah, we would race on the
who would win
on the little sticks. He was better than me. He was actually genuinely good at it. It was really disgusting. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And then as soon as steering wheels came out, like I was just a dweeb for it. So I just went flat out.
Yeah. How does Sim? Obviously Max gets his rocks off on the Sim. Does that scratch the itch at all for you?
Like, no, not really. Like it doesn't do the thing. So like I'm partially in racing, made my way by being like a bit mad in the high speed corners. And so like I'm not against the best on the sim. I'm not particularly good on the sim. And like we all like doing things we're better at, right? So I've always been okay. I've never been super great. I never got that thrill of it. For me, racing was always something that needed to be a bit intimidating and scary. Yeah. And like I like that. I also kind of I was one of. Do you remember GT Academy? Do you guys ever come across GT Academy? It was like a competition where drivers from the sim got moved through to the real world.
That's the movie.
Yes,
That's the movie.
Yes. So Jan Mardenborough was my teammate at Le Mans, having won that.
You were teammates
competition.
with that guy?
Yes, yeah, in 2014.
Wow.
So like I went through a big period of being a bit burned about the sim, because like in that, like obviously that program had its own sort of narrative, which was that the sim drivers would come through and be like instantly amazing in the real car, which in certain cases, they were like extremely talented and ended up being very good. But like, I was the pro driver sent to like be the bench. You see where this is coming?
So were you're the bully?
You were the bad guy.
Like, yeah, you're like it's not the real world, nerd.
It's not the video game nerd.
So I know who that character is based on. It's definitely not me.
Okay.
But like, but yeah. But like, so I'm the pro driver, like, to be alongside them. And so I ended up being a little bit like, okay, but okay, guys, I'd like some new tires now, though, also, please. Occasionally. And that ended up me. And so you would have talked to me sort of in that era, and I'd have been a little bit like, no, I don't like the sim. Leave me alone.
It's like you're just like a baseline.
Sure,
right.
Sure.
So didn't feel good.
The test case.
A baseline to be surpassed at the earliest possible opportunity.
Yes.
Right.
In a very public manner.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you get me on the WEC train? Get me. I mean, not that's your responsibility, but
make the races interesting. Make the strategy converge.
No.
You
right.
and your father need to get me on the WEC train. Yeah, it is. It's genuinely interesting. I mean, leave yourself a bit of time, sure.
Block out 24 hours.
Yeah. So that is it. Like, when I watch the World Endurance Championship, that concept of a car going at those speeds for that long, the fatigue on it, just how beautiful it is what you do it for. But it's classical music, you know. This is not Led Zeppelin. This is it. You've got to really sit down, get yourself in the mode for it, leave it burbling in the background, and just enjoy it in golden. Enjoy watching it for 30 minutes in golden hour. Pop back at the end to see who wins. I mean, nobody's in the World Endurance Championship or in sports car racing. I don't think it's delusional to think that 80% of the audience sit down and watch a 24-hour race, right. Cover to cover, right? So,
what are the inflection points? Like a pit stop, or like what are the sort of the convergence points? Like in F1, is that when you tune in, where like strategies would quote unquote converge, or drivers would change?
You're gonna watch the start of it, then you're gonna watch sort of like the key moments as you go into the night. As you come back into the day, and then it all sort of plays out in the last hour. But honestly, it's slow burn enough, and I believe that the broadcast is set up in such a way. I mean, so they have these hourly updates, right? You can come back in. So if you just drop out for literally like 6 hours and come back, you can always drop back through and find out what happened to Ferrari 51 and so on and so forth. They're genuinely interesting cars. The problem that sports car racing has is you can't make heroes because the cars are, are shared by 3 drivers. So when you look at, go to Spa and you've got a whole grandstand for Max Verstappen. They love Max. Right? They're there for Max, his character, his ability behind the wheel, his flair. Go to Silverstone, you've got the Lando stand. You can't have like the Ferrari 51 grandstand, can you? Because, people just don't buy into cars. They buy into people. So that's it. I mean, the other way you can do it is find a brand of car you love and just support that brand. And then I guess that's an entry point, if you like.
Ooh, what's that sound? That's the sound of another sale on Shopify. Vankas, we here at the Red Flags love Shopify. It's what we use for our perfect website, theredflagspod.com, for our incredible merch, which you can buy right now. And each time you do, you know how easy it is. You can thank Shopify for that. When I started this podcast, it seemed like I had to figure out everything out on my own, when to record, what is downforce, what's even going on in the world of Formula One and the team that is Ferrari. But then we found Jenny. We found our friends over at Friday Beers, and when we wanted to make our own merch, we turned to Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Get started at your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style, accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And best yet, Shopify is your e-commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify, and turn your big business idea into... With Shopify on your side, sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redflags. Go to shopify.com/redflags. Once again, shopify.com/redflags. What do you latch on to? Or like if you felt like, in Formula One, you latch onto the person, other people maybe latch onto the team or latch onto a type of car. Do you, do you latch on to person, car, track, series? What gets your juices going, and has that changed over the years?
So I am, as covered, insanely jealous of all of them for driving the car I should be driving. So like, I don't watch it for, and that's why like accusations of bias in the media always amuse me a lot. It's like, I'm not a fan of any of these people. They should all be giving me their seat. Yeah. Like I'm kind of impressed by their ability and sort of dislike them for taking my job in equal measure. Sure. What I love about racing is kind of encapsulated a little bit in this Leclerc in Hungary story. I love to work out why that one beat that one, because that's what racing boils down to when you're actually involved in it, So you sit there at the end of the day and went, okay, I lost today. I came fifth. I qualified fifth. Why did I qualify? Like, why was I able to do a 57.9 and she was able to do a 57.4, and that's why they're on pole? That's the process of it, right? So then I look at a race like what happened with Ferrari and Leclerc in Hungary, and it fascinates me why the pace played out the way it did. Like, what was the interplay between like tarmac conditions, the other competitors, the way they'd set up the car, what they'd chosen, the compromises that they made that led to that moment of victory or loss, which is like extremely nerdy. I recognize that, but that's kind of what gets me.
Well, I think it's an interesting... You bring up Leclerc, but I think that this year, there's a big question that's hanging over the season. This season will be defined by the Lando and Oscar. Why did this guy beat me on this day? Why did this guy beat me on this day? Why was he able to pull together this whole season back and forth? I'm curious, as you've seen this season play out, we're now at the summer break. We've got 10 races left. Yeah. What are your kind of takeaways from this year with regards to the two of them?
A battle in terms of psychology, I think, just between the two of them. I saw the beginning of this season, and I thought it's going to be a battle that plays out in Lando's ability to deliver what I think at the start of the year, less so now, was naturally better pace than Piastri. But could he execute?
Sorry, is that when people say pace, you mean Saturday tires on a race day?
I think a little bit of both. I think a little bit of general experience that faded really quickly as the year's gone on. They've got pace parity now. Which one of them can handle the pressure throughout the year? Now, I assumed that at the beginning of this year that person was going to be Piastri. It was a slam dunk. You could see the character of the two drivers. And Oscar Piastri, when you heard from him, when you watched him in the paddock, when you watched the way he engaged with it, looked so much calmer. Then you see weekends like Monaco, where Lando is under pressure. Everybody's talking about his mentality. He just turns up and is lightning with no mistakes all weekend, And all of a sudden you think, oh, okay, right. So this one's going to run the full year. You know, Lando can, if he finds the right mode, handle that pressure and deliver all of that pace. McLaren have also found him something in the front steering, in the steering that gives him a bit of a better feel of the car for those front limited circuits he doesn't like. It's going to go to the wire. The last test, and it's a psychological test, is what happens in the big finale, I believe we're going to get between the two of them. Because that's yet another mind state, isn't it? Like the Abu Dhabi final race, off the line stuff is where being under a bit of pressure turns into a today, win or lose today. And that's going to be the fascinating part of the second part of the season.
It's interesting because, you know, with Leclerc, you talking about like looking at telemetry, looking at lap times. You can't do that with psychology. What are you looking at? What are you interpreting? That becomes more amorphous when you're talking about psychology.
Sure.
What are you looking? What are you nerding out over then?
So again, like there's no bias on the variable that's causing success or failure, right? So like sometimes that variable's human, and then sometimes that variable's not, right? So sometimes the guys have the car in their hands to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So, like the McLarens do, and then okay, so now we default down to like what's the weakest link in this? Well, the weakest link in this suddenly is the nut behind the wheel, right? So you start looking at it and you go, okay, who then they can both clearly turn a lap, they can both clearly deliver and manage tires over a race distance. We've seen them both do it throughout this year. You know, the pursuit over the last two race weekends, one's gone one way, one's gone the other way. So like the only remaining variable is how will that stand up to the ever escalating pressure? And then that becomes driver psychology, which is interesting in itself. But like all of a sudden, if, you know, Lando's side of the garage make a bizarre setup direction, then of course you nerd out over the difference in aero level and why it cost him. And so
have you noticed any differences or not really?
No, they tend to run the cars pretty similarly. I mean, only this front end geometry thing for Lando. But they tend to run the cars pretty similarly. And we can see that in the wheel speed data and that kind of thing. I mean, look, when you've got clearly the best car, you set it up and you go racing.
You gotta always look at the wheel speed data. You know, because it's interesting when Max and Lewis are fighting, you know, for the championship. You're like, well, that car had more downforce than this car. That car was fast. So it's harder to tell. Like, okay, when they're in the same car, it's like, okay, it's guy versus guy. It was interesting, you know, just like licking your finger, putting it to the wind of the excitement around this championship. Brian and I can only remember as far back as 2021 when we got into the sport. There seems to be less of a fever pitch around this thing. Like what we want is a Senna-Prost. These guys are in the same team. They're in the same car. Like on paper, it feels like it should be epic, but honestly, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel explosive. It doesn't feel legendary. I mean, some people are saying, you know, it's because they're both too nice. Some people are saying that it's just maybe it's not that because neither guy is the best. Like if Max was in there, then it would feel better. But
yeah,
trying to get your feelings on that.
I mean, I think McLaren are doing an incredibly good job, firstly, of managing them, which if you're looking for a soap opera, is denying you it, right? Like even when they clashed in Canada, it's kind of like a momentary, oh, that's immediately my fault, and I'm really sorry for causing that crash. Oh, that's okay, buddy. Let's go racing next week. You know, yeah. So if that's what you're going for, then it's not delivering you that, and it's McLaren doing a good job of managing the two drivers, which is causing that to occur.
Right, we want the soap opera. We want.
So you're saying we need to get Ron Dennis back in there, is what you're saying?
Honestly, I think Ron Dennis would like those two. Are just like Piastri's just horizontal. Mm-hmm. They'll be. They're also like you got to remember that Zach is a marketing man, right? and he is a character who is extremely good at keeping positivity. So I've driven for Zach in sports cars in United Autosports. So he's a character who's very good at keeping continuous positivity around a team, right? So he wants to deny you the soap opera because he knows that Google won't like it, right? So
Google won't like attention.
The sponsor, because
sponsor won't like eyeballs. Who care? This is my question. Honestly, Alex, this is my honest question. What does Google care if they're crossing the finish line 1-2, or they're in a crumpled heap? As long as there's clicks, as long as there's eyeballs, and they win the championship anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's clearly not the way they're going about it. I mean, it's always been an interesting point in racing that's come down to sort of like, for example, why have Sauber been in Formula One for so long, right? When they've not been a winning team for absolute donkey's years, right? And they're there for the attention. It's a functioning business. I don't know. They're choosing to keep it positive, and if you're going to race, why not win, right? And I think McLaren want to make sure they're going to win, and they're doing a great job. That's the other thing that's going to change, right? These final throws of the championship, at some point, one of these two guys is going to go no, and just ignore them or have a radio failure and just
yeah. I feel like that's the kind of, because what is a little, McLaren's all about, they're just like, how awesome are we, everyone? We're letting them race. Look at us. We're the best. And then it's just like Oscar makes a lunge in Hungary, and they are immediately on the phone being like, oh, come on now, Oscar. That's not how we do things. And we're just like, it feels like they want a little bit have like the best of both worlds. They want to say that they will let them race, but then when a driver does anything even close to lungy, they're scolding them. So it's like, are we really letting them race, or what's happening here?
The knives can be out. My thing was, the knives can be out on the strategy side, but not on the track. That's bullshit.
Well, that was a pretty heavy duty lunge, to be fair. I mean, both fronts locked up, heading towards the side pod is about as lungy as lunges get.
Desperate lunge. I'm not saying it's not a desperate lunge.
Hey! As far as I'm concerned, Lando took him out in Canada, or like crashed into him in Canada. Oscar should get one.
But then you got to look at the flip side of the argument, right? So there would be commentators, maybe not, but maybe you guys would be standing in the stands going, "Awesome race, great job, great job, McLaren. I actually caught a bit of power unit, awesome." Yeah. Right? So like, maybe you guys would be doing that, but like there would
Max Verstappen. If that was Lewis, he's taking him out because he doesn't want either one. Right? He's taking him out.
Yeah.
Michael Schumacher taking him out.
Then poor Andrea Stella has to go and stand. You know, what you guys forget is poor Andrea Stella then has to go and stand for a further 3 hours at differing locations around the paddock with our poor floor managers pulling him around all over the place and explain why he let Oscar Piastri lock up both fronts and career into the side of Lando Norris and do X million quid's worth of damage and lose them that many points in the World Championship.
Here's what I'll say, though. What hooked this entire new American fan base was Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo crashing in Baku. When we found out, as like the new American fans, are like, oh, teammates can crash into each other and hate each other, and like it's actually it's my teammate, but really it's my biggest enemy. That's kind of like what hooked it, and it feels like it's this weird thing within the sport, because it's like the sport has set up that you're supposed to that you actually you're teammates, but you actually hate this other person. So
it's very European and Tour de France, isn't it? It's like I'm gonna pull you along just until it suits me to do so, and then I'm just gonna leave you for dead.
It's Game of Thrones. It's insane. It's like it's you know what it is. It's very like European in that, like, my brother is my biggest enemy in the line to the throne. It's very
Right? Yes.
Reading through Roman Empire notes, poisoned his brother and became Caesar. Yeah.
exactly.
I do
Your
get
brother's
what you
supposed
mean.
to be your best friend. No, but in Europe, he's in the way.
Yeah,
right?
I do. But again, like NASCAR has a bit of that. You know, we're bump drafting until the white flag flies, and then it's every driver for themselves and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess it's so. McLaren splitting, for example, into two sides of the garage.
Right.
Can you say this is the bizarre thing? Like, can you imagine that like actually on the ground? Like, put yourself on, you know, the pit perch when they sit on the pit wall.
Yeah.
Put yourself actually on the pit wall, and you see that, and team engineers, they're literally doing this.
I
Right?
can't imagine it.
So the guy sitting, he's rubbing shoulders with, or can't see his lips moving when he says box.
What I can't understand is, where is Andrea Stella as like that's, or Zach Brown as that is? Where is he? What's he doing? What's the guy above?
He's reminding them of the papaya rules. He's reminding them of the papaya rules. He's there flicking through the papaya rules at the back of the garage, just going, "Mind with the papaya rules, please." And that's it. No. I mean, like, their job is done at that point, right? So they're your rudder, they're your direction guys. They're your direction guys.
Yeah, it feels like I just want to let them, it feels like it's happening on the pit wall, and they're kind of like the front facing, which is what's happening on track. They're not allowed to kind of like keep that same energy. And I just want everyone on the McLaren side, on each side of the garage, to, as they would say on Love Island, stand on business, 10 toes down, and just be going at each other to do this. Okay, so you said in the beginning of the year you thought it was going to be Piastri, then you've seen some moments from Lando. What do you think this next 10 races, are you still giving the edge to Piastri in this championship?
Oh, is that like a thinly veiled prediction request? Yeah, it's a prediction request, isn't it?
I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that.
It's not even veiled. It's not even veiled at all.
Giving him too much credit.
I think a McLaren will definitely win.
Sound like Gunter now. Gunter, who's going to win? McLaren.
I don't know. There we go. Am I allowed to not know?
Sure.
It would be a punt based on nothing. If one of those drivers DNFs at any point, it's over. In my view, for that driver, because like the other one will win. It's then 25 points. You can't, I really assumed sort of by at least sort of 4 or 5 races to go, something bizarre would have happened. Like they would have got a puncture, or, a back marker turns in on them, or they go off in the rain at Spa, or, something like that. But it's just not been there. I think it goes down to the wire, and then Piastri wins in the final race. But again, it's a punt, right? It's a punt, right? It's based on what they eat for breakfast that morning and how it affects their psychology.
Well, Piastri basically had a DNF in the sense that Lando won in Australia and he managed like 1 point. That was huge.
Yeah.
And then he clawed his way through to, now he's got a 9-point lead at the break. That's pretty intense.
in a similar, in slightly more races, but not many more.
Not that many.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he had a 15-point lead in 12 races, in the 11 whatever races he had. By the real halfway mark, he had 15-point lead. So even a DNF, one of these guys could claw it back.
The most interesting thing about the rest of the championship is like who is actually going to engage with that leading battle. Like last time out, it was Leclerc. You go to Monza, it could easily be Verstappen. I think with a Red Bull that I think will be pretty decent there. Will Ferrari get their act together? Will it be cold enough for Mercedes to engage? And that's the problem. Like, if you, for example, do a Lando off the start and it doesn't work out, then that's why I think there's still fizz in the championship battle, because the rest are close enough to still, like, engage. Like, if Lando fluffs the start and breaks early down the inside in Hungaroring, you know, Leclerc and Russell are ahead of him. Like that. So
Lando was fortunate in the sense that, like, Max wasn't a player in that race and Leclerc fell away. But it's also like, when you have an off day, are the other guys there or not? That
sure.
Also sort of depends on
sure.
Or when you when you have an off day, are you next to Max Verstappen at the start? You know, that's always a pain in the ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Or when you have a good day and Max is there or Charles is there, and it's like, you know, on a race where maybe you would have gotten a 1-2 and gained 7 points. Instead, it's a 2-3 and you gain 3 points. So it's like, you know, aspects of those things kind of.
There are days where, you know, Oscar will out-qualify Lando, but Max will out-qualify both of them, and it's like, fuck.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's just a professional problem at this point, isn't he? He's just a problem. He's just a problem for the rest of the year. And, you know, Max also, like, you know, we know he's going to stay with Red Bull, but he's still considering his future, right? So, Red Bull are, you know, negotiations continually going on. It wouldn't be long of Max, like, really underperforming. Like, you know, obviously we know the car was not there for him this weekend. It was absolutely torrid. I watched it all weekend, okay? But, like, let's say he did, you know, the rest of the end of this season out of the back of the points, you know, out of the back of the points, then went into the new regulation set, and then the first half of next season with Red Bull as well, like, back end of the top 10. Like, really struggling. At that point, like, it's people. I don't think anybody's ever going to say he's not one of the greatest drivers in the world. But, like, moving in terms of his options, you know, you never know what can happen then on. Like, the legend of Max Verstappen is definitely slightly dented then in comparison to him, you know, being out front, clearly outperforming a Red Bull, which is super tricky to drive, or delivering the full potential of a Red Bull, which is super tricky to drive, and then delivering race results where he's, like, slipping it by Piastri in Imola and being able to sort of, you know, lead races in a really difficult car. So he still needs to be that problem, even though he knows he's not going to win the championship now.
Yeah, he's battling for rep. He's battling for rep. Which is what he was doing, I feel like, in the early part of his career before the Red Bull was really able to win championships. He was like, no, I'm still a problem. We got some fan questions here before we let you go. This is from Clint C81. If you could drive for one team in F1 history, which would it be?
Oh, one team in F1 is... I mean, Schumacher era Ferrari. Like, just because, I mean, I don't want to challenge here, you know, or
okay,
okay. He wants to win.
I just want to win. Literally, like, just whack-a-mole championships out.
I forgot about your fantasy where you and your dad both drive out and you come back and everyone just applauds you guys.
Full stands of just brilliant lap, Brundle. Brilliant lap.
What about you replace Schumacher in '92 Benetton?
Yeah, I could do. That would be fun. That would be really fun. I've actually driven that car. It was Schumacher's chassis, not the other one, but I've driven that car.
We know you're aficionado on the classic cars, you know, both on road cars and F1 alike. Does the Schumacher, does that era of car speak to you more than kind of like the, you know, the Lotuses of the yesteryear? Kind of what era of F1 car most excites you?
I love turbo era F1 cars. I don't know why I do. I like the concept of it. So I like them sort of extreme and expendable. So, you know, when you go and look through, like, for example, I had a whole day looking around Lotuses of that era. And there's a Renault engine they used to run, made 1,200 horsepower, and it was for qualifying only. It was an engine that did 4 laps, and then they threw the engine in the bin. One of my friends, who's getting on a bit now, used to be one of the mechanics who changed the turbos on the engine block in the middle of qualifying to make sure that they didn't like melt themselves, and they put new turbos on with the new tires. So
Just
that
like
era of Formula
just
One
like
cars,
condoms, they went through the engines. It's just like crazy.
just like insane.
I'm still
So are you one of these people that it's like when MBS talks about, you know, bringing back just regular engines? Are you in favor of retrofying F1 a little bit? Even just a little
Massively.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, you know, I definitely think that Formula One cars are currently way too heavy. I don't blame that on safety features, although they've made them slightly heavier. The Halo's not unbelievably heavy. That's all about electrification. I don't. So, like, okay, you know, you go and watch Mercedes in Formula One, right? That, for me, that's Mercedes showing you the best car that they can make. Right, they're doing something incredible, right? And as the audience member, you then go, right, if Mercedes can make that incredible downforce laden, brilliant Formula One car, imagine what they can do with my runabout that I then.
Yeah.
The car doesn't have to be the same as my car for me to be convinced, right? You don't have to electrify Formula One racing, in my view, to prove to the customer base that Mercedes can make a hybrid and it'll be good, you know? So yeah, I think we should ditch all of that weight and then have just V8s again. That'd be cool.
It's an interesting, I mean, you know, part of the like thesis, at least front facing of F1 is kind of like we test it here and then it trickles down to your, you know, Honda Civic or whatever it is. And it's unclear even how much that even actually happens or whether how much that is just kind of, you know, the front-facing line. Do you know?
So it like used to happen exactly, you know, with things like motorsport, ABS, traction control. But now it happens in like broad understandings, right? So, for example, they might produce a material to try and like a new type of carbon fiber to make a Formula One car corner extremely quickly and make it much lighter. Now, you're not going to make exactly the same chassis out of exactly the same material, but what then someone then might do in the road car sector is take that material, make it massively cheaper to produce, and then make something else out of it. Right? So what we've not learned, like the car is not exactly the same, but we've learned about that material that can be repurposed to do something else.
Sure.
And that's kind of what it's all about for me.
Right. Like nothing on Oscar Piastri's car is making it to the McLaren, or on George Russell's car is making it to, you know, SUV that,
sure,
you know,
or 720S.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that illusion is gone. It's just
the conceptual understandings are, right? So like if McLaren understand how to make like extreme amounts of power by maximizing 1.6 liters, they might not be prepared to spend the money on your road car. What they can do is like grab all the like basic understandings of low-hanging fruit and like apply bits of them to your road car. So it's like a general learning that goes on.
It's kind of this tension, right? Because it's like you can make Formula One more entertaining and better, like a better sport, if you just bring back the engines, make them smaller, faster, whippier, whatever. But then there's this fear that, oh, you'll lose the manufacturers.
How many cars did Red Bull make?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Why do we care about the manufacturers again? We care about, I guess, Ferrari. But, like, why do we care if we're, like, I guess we care. Do we care? Like, because it adds legitimacy. Like, tell me why F1 cares if Mercedes is like, well, we're leaving.
So that is a little bit of historical bias. And a little bit of funding, right? Okay. So in previous eras of racing, you would like work your championship up. Like, look what's happened with the World Endurance Championship in recent years. So you've like worked your championship up, and like almost like a seal of approval for what you're doing in terms of being a racing championship is your OEM manufacturers then come along and go, this you're doing with this championship, absolutely fantastic. Renault are so impressed, and it's kind of like a merit badge, you know, to go on your chest to say like, you know, Ferrari or Renault, BMW are impressed. So there's a little bit of like historical bias and stature to the whole thing, right?
Right.
Secondly, it's funding. But, you know, for example, Aston Martin, the road car company, have just literally sold the bit of the Aston Martin race car team that they owned. Right. So, you know, you've got, and through the past of Formula One, we've had, you know, Lotus and Caterham, for example, absolutely nothing to do with the manufacturer. Even self-titled teams, absolutely nothing to do with the manufacturer. Right. They propose to be representing, you know, like, and equally so, right? You know, the Alpine is made by the same, an evolution of the group of people, in the same factory as that Benetton we were talking about earlier, right? So it's the race team at Enstone. Okay, so the concept that the actual manufacturer are like demonstrating their wares is a bit outdated. But it's nice to have them around because they do put a lot of money into things.
Right.
Yeah.
All about the Benjamins. Okay, more fan questions. This is from K Nums. Who do you think would do better on the show Hot Ones? You or your dad?
I've never seen the show Hot Ones.
It's the one where they eat the progressively spicy chicken wings.
Oh, okay. I would. So my dad like doesn't like literally spicy food at all. Like I don't think, like a little bit, but not a lot. So I would do much better. I would do much better. That's a slam dunk.
Okay, this is from
Sega Rally Championship, Hot Ones.
That's right. There we go. Come on. Do you have a favorite Martin-ism, phrase or idiom that he has said or has?
So this is really weird because I'm just really used to him talking like that. Right. So I don't consider them like specific phrasing. I don't consider it like specific phraseology. That's just how he talks. So it's hard to like isolate one. Like hug your apex like your favorite granny is the only one I know that sounds like outlandish, like something he's pre-prepared that he wouldn't normally say. The rest of it's just like... What does he say
around the house?
Oh, stuff like that. Yeah. totally stuff like that. You know, like, honestly, yeah, comparing stuff to other stuff. It just naturally talks like that.
It is from Ulysses24. If there was a non-motorsport event that you would want to commentate for?
WWE. WWE. I would love to. Because you're like, if you know where they kind of like sit on the side?
You're
and
right
there's the guy in the and there's the guy in the cowboy hat with the southern accent who was awesome.
What's his name?
I have no idea. I have no. That's
Were you a
the most I
fan
know about
growing
the guy.
up?
Yeah.
Who
So
was your guy?
I obviously
Who was your
I
guy?
grew up in the 90s, so I like the Undertaker.
Jim Ross.
Understand.
Jim Ross. Is that what we're talking about?
So I'm an Attitude Era wrestling fan. But yeah, like so full on like Undertaker fan. Again, more computer game addiction. You know, WWE Attitude in the little disc case, the whole thing.
Okay, so how could you? So retrospectively, going back on our conversation, how the fuck could you endorse Zach Brown's way of managing this thing? Now that I know that you respect the genius of Vince McMahon stirring the pot, and the
maybe it's my
we need to go
maybe
fucking Attitude Era with Formula One. That's how you fucking sell tickets and get viewership.
I could just imagine you guys screaming, "Give him the chair" in the cool down room.
That is what you want to see.
Here comes Lando Norris is entering the paddock, and here comes Oscar Piastri with the chair.
I don't know. Maybe it's my way of rebelling. Who knows?
Right,
but like, a big time wrestling fan. I like it because I feel like as the commentator, you'd be involved in the sport, you know?
Yes.
They
Right.
kind of, you have to get out of the way and stuff.
Yeah.
It always amazes me as well. There must be technical geniuses because no matter how much they smash up that desk, the comms still all work perfectly.
Dude, those wire cords, they're wrapped with absolute like NASA
Yeah.
So
string.
would it be your dream for the Undertaker to like throw you through your screen,
Just choke slams me through the yeah.
like put you through the telemetry?
Oh god, so I take melatonin to sleep on the planes. That sounds like definitely like a dream I'd have.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, on the planes.
Oh man, well this was a blast, Alex. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. We had a great time. We could talk to you for hours more, but we'll let you get on with your life. But do you have any things that you'd want to plug, or any stuff where people can find you, or something you have going on?
No, find me on Twitter if you want. I am at Alex Brundle, at Alex Brundle Racing on Instagram. I run a little team of historic race cars called Brundle Motorsport. Follow that. If you want to watch cars go sideways fast, follow that.
And don't forget to subscribe to the WWE channel where you can watch old Attitude Era.
That's right. That's right. We need someone on the
wrestling
McLaren
match.
garage to go full heel, and I don't think it's gonna be Lando Norris, so it's got to be Oscar Piastri.
No, one of them. You know, one of them has to pull a Hulk Hogan and go heel, turn heel.
That's
That's what
right.
we need.
And The Rock, everyone's done it. Everyone's gone heel at some point. All right, Alex, we started this podcast with a What's Up Vankas in honor of our now co-host of our other podcast, Gunter Steiner. Would you honor us with a goodbye Vankas?
Goodbye, Vankas.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Yeah, how about
Goodbye,
that?
Vankas.
I'm a boss. I'm a red flag heavy hitter.